Welcome to Basecamp Wisdom, a podcast with people who've weathered the storms, traveled the hard miles, and made it to the other side. We're going to explore life lessons, proven tools, and experiences that'll help guide you on your own leadership journey. So grab your coffee, sit back and listen to seasoned Sherpas who've not just weathered the storms, but they've made it to the other side. Hi, Todd Vinson here with Basecamp Wisdom. Getting to interview my good friend Jay Sampson. This is actually our second attempt at our very first podcast. So telling on myself here. So hopefully we'll get a better version this time. But man, Jay, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. I left the Christmas decorations up just to keep the ambiance. So we're in about mid teardown. So that tree should be gone by tomorrow. We'll see.
All right. Well, I'll be checking in.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, man, it's the first of the year and a lot of transition. There's probably been lots of New Year's resolutions made and already forgotten. But one of the things I wanted to hop on here and talk to you about is, has there been a time that, man, you found yourself really hard on yourself or things didn't go the way that you had expected? And how did you work through that just in light of the new year and folks that do set goals for the new year? Let's see if you could share a train wreck story and how you navigated through it and, man, what you learned from it.
Yeah, I got plenty of those. First and foremost, I'm not good at goals. And by not good at goals, I mean I'm not good at keeping them. And it's fine. I'm fine about making them, I guess. But ultimately, if you're not good at keeping goals, making goals is pretty much a futile effort. So, one of the things I read, I don't even know how long ago it's been. I think it's a John Acuff-ism, and John's he's written a lot about atomic habits and finish and things like that. Which speaks to when you gather a following, helping people finish things. I mean, it tells you that setting goals and keeping goals is a challenge for everybody. But one of the things I remember him saying was that the reason that most people's goals fail is because they're too big and too far away. And that resonated with me because it was like, I can start out the year, especially, beginning of a new year, whatever. You can start out with some really lofty goals. I'm not going to do this all year. I'm going to do this all year, or, whatever it is. And inevitably, I mean, some people are not. A lot of people are setting themselves up for failure because, that's, you're saying for the next 365 days, this is what I'm going to do. And for me, that never worked. I don't know that it works for a whole lot of people. And it's okay. I think it's okay to have that goal in mind. But if you don't have intermediate goals, if you don't have small attainable goals that you can set along the way, there's probably not a real high likelihood that you're actually going to hit it. And so, I think Acuff's thing or what hit me when I heard that was, a lofty goal is ideally nothing more than the next one in a series of a bunch of smaller goals. And so when you actually hit it, and I think this is true for a lot of people who achieve some greatness as well, is the idea of an overnight success, right? Is that, just this person just popped on the scene and had all this success. No, they didn't. We're just now realizing that they had this success. They've been working for years honing a craft, and they've been working for years taking smaller gigs or working in the minor leagues or whatever that is. And then when we see them, we haven't seen all the work, but we're now seeing them reach their goal, which was actually just the next logical step in the progression of them building on their other goals. So that's the way that I've gone about it, and they can be, they can be simple things like I'm gonna work out every day. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna work out every day this year, but I can work out today,
right?
And that knocks this one out. Then I can re-rack it and do it tomorrow. Yeah.
So are you saying you're focused more on on your long-term vision and then making smaller attainable goals along the way? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I think so. With the reality or with the grace towards myself that the long-term goal. I mean, end of the day, it may not happen. I mean, there are some things that I have as a goal that I don't have complete control over, but I do have control over some things that I can do that put me in the most likely position to be able to attain that goal or to reach the benefit of that goal. And so I do have control over those things. So let's say, I don't know. I mean, I want to, a lot of people who are self-employed or running businesses or whatever, you have economic goals, right? And you should, right? Because if if you don't have something to aim at, you really don't have anything that really kind of guides your day to day. But there may be some things. There can be market conditions. Anything that happens can affect that goal. But there are things that you can do that would put you in the best position to realize those things, right? Get out there and meet with people, put together products, do some research, show up for work, right? I mean, all of those things, you can do those things and you're much more likely to realize whatever goals it is that you set for yourself than if you don't. And I think that that's probably somewhat the debilitating part of having such lofty goals that are so far out there. It's just easy to quit before you ever start. It's like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to hit that anyway. So
I didn't do a very good job introducing you. We just kind of hopped right into a topic. We'll share a little bit about your background with what you do with Giant. I mean, you and I have got a long history together. You know, we grew up in the same town, knew each other in high school growing up. But we spent some years out at Willow Springs Boys Ranch together, and so we've got a history. But even with our history together, we've both worked several different types of jobs. And so, share a little bit about your background and how this has come into play. Maybe personally and professionally.
Sure, appreciate it. Yeah, from the Giant world side of things, I came to Giant as a client to begin with. I was pastoring a church for about 10 years. I had been in church work for about 16 total by the time it was all said and done. And was leading a smaller group, but leading a group of leading a group of volunteers, just seeing I think the results of my leadership, but maybe not knowing it was the results of my leadership, just seeing the results that I saw, and then realizing through the process of coming to Giant, growing in my leadership understanding, knowing myself and all those things, realizing, a lot of the things that I was seeing in even the people I was leading, they were actually byproducts of my own leadership, right? And I think this plays well into the goals conversation is being a better leader. Well, that's a good goal. But
how do you quantify it?
Yeah, right. How do you define that? So you've got to back up and be able to say, well, I believe that this at the end of the day, I believe that my assessment of myself and potentially, ideally, my people's assessment of me was that I led in a better way. I got to define better, more consistent, whatever it is. And then begin to set some goals based on that. So if I know that I want to lead in a more productive, more healthy way, and some of that has to do with handling things that need to be handled in a timely manner. Okay, great. Then start building in the practice of, hey, I know I've got these 3 things that are hanging out there. I'm going to finish those this week because I believe that looks like a leader that's proactive and that is active. And I think a leader that is proactive and active is seen as a good leader. Okay. That's a bite-sized thing that I can do this week that moves me toward a goal of being a better leader. Again, end of the day, I can't control how people view me as a leader, but I can do the things that I believe should allow them to think of me as a leader in a positive light.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of the Giant tool, just about expectations. And I've been notorious for setting goals and expectations that weren't realistic. And then, I'm overwhelmed and feel defeated at the end of the day. And no one put those expectations on me but myself. And so, that's where I think this tool is good because it's just a mirror. It's not judgment. It's just, okay, how are my expectations? Are they realistic? Am I limited in my belief in what my potential is? Am I undermining or undervaluing myself, or have I just kind of thrown up my hands? Whatever happens. Or do I set a goal that's so high that's not realistic, or maybe not even unrealistic? It's just impossible. I shared this story on the first run of this conversation, even in some of my work with EOT Coffee on setting some sales goals. Man, set them really high. We had some things in the pipeline that were coming and felt really confident about it. I didn't factor in COVID and all the other things. And regardless of what you think you've got teed up, things take longer and take more time and probably cost more. But the goal I set for a sales goal that one year was 38% growth. And looking back now, and it even sounds ridiculous to even say that out loud, especially knowing that the year before we did 12% as a startup.
Yeah.
We had some, big grocery stores. We had some distribution. We had some other things, some regional breakfast chains. It sounds actually, you know what? Yeah, we can do that. And we got to the next year and we were just kind of having our annual review, and one of our partners goes, well, Todd, that was awfully, I appreciate your enthusiasm.
That's right.
That was lofty, but golly, we did 18%, which is 6% over what we did that year before. And yet I'm picking you up off the floor because you feel like a failure and you feel defeated. And I suspect that everyone else on your team felt that same pressure as you would drive and push to reach that goal. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Todd, that doesn't sound very realistic. I mean, were you doing that to impress me? And I go, well, when I'm honest, yeah, probably, but also to bring value and want to pay back investors and deliver a profit. All the motives were good. But as I looked at that tool, man, what I did was just, it was somewhere between impossible and incredibly unrealistic. And
Yeah, and
having done that,
if I remember correctly,
oh
you
man,
still hit 150%, right, of the
yeah,
previous year,
yeah,
but couldn't
yeah,
celebrate because you didn't hit 400%.
right, right.
And
And
I
that
think,
sounds real. It sounds silly, but man, I think that's probably for a lot of people and a lot of leaders. That's probably what's going on in our head, and yet we just set ourselves up for failure because that goal wasn't realistic. It's good to have some goals and some stretch goals, but I like what you said a minute ago about breaking those down into some smaller bite-sized pieces that we can celebrate.
well, in great companies, I think that this is something seen with some of my clients is when we talk about growth, right? It's always goal setting, whether you want to call it that or not. I mean, it's always
Mm-hmm.
goal setting when we talk about growth because here's where I am and here's where I would like to be. Well, that's growth and that's a goal. Great companies, inside great companies, they're high performing influencers, high performing people of influence who are not needing external motivation to set their goals. Now, we all get those. You'll have an annual review, and here's some goals that my boss has for me or whatever, and I understand that. And somebody sets your goals, and you got to make some plans to hit that. But in great companies, you have somewhat what seems like intrinsically motivated high-level influencers who are making the decisions about here's how I would like to grow in this next year. It's not something I'm being required to do. It's something that I want to grow for my own ability and my ability to make the company more profitable, more efficient, more effective, whatever it is. This is a way that I want to grow, and then being able to set some intermediate goals to be able to get to that. That makes a company incredible because now we're not putting out fires all the time of people who aren't meeting
Right.
expectations. We've got this whole host of people who are meeting expectations and probably even exceeding them if we're honest, who are continually looking at themselves and thinking, how do I want to get better? And getting better is setting goals. It's I'm here and I want to be here, and then being strategic about it. I think is thinking, yeah. I mean, to your point of the giant tool, the expectations. Is it realistic? Right? Is that a realistic goal for me to be able to hit? And is it motivating for me? I mean, am I actually excited about that? And if I am, then what could I do this month, this quarter, this week, today? What could I do right now that moves me in that direction? I've told people for years that the goal isn't always where we end up. So we don't always hit the goal, but it's always why we start down the path.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to move towards this growth that I want to see. I may get down that path and realize, you know what, that growth is not either as applicable or as exciting to me right now, but I think this is. I never would have known about this area of growth had I not started down the path toward this other area of growth. So you got to give yourself enough, I think, leverage to be able to do that, to be able to be
Yeah.
progressing towards a goal and then be able to say, I'm going to tweak that. It's still growth. And now that I'm further down the road, I can actually take advantage of this growth over here. And then also, like, I mean, in your case, 38%, still a great goal, but can you get to the end of a year, realize 150% growth and say, you know what, 38% is still a great goal. We didn't hit it this year, but I was just off of my optics, right? I was looking at a
Right.
1 year runway. What if that was a 3 year runway to get to 38% greater than we were last year?
Right. And we're talking about small wins here, but I think the thing that comes up that we overlook is, how do you celebrate that? So what does that look like for you, personally, professionally, even in your own family? How do you, when it is a small win, it's not the grand slam. How do you celebrate that?
That's a great question because I don't
And
know
is it
that.
hard for you? Is it as hard for you
Yeah,
as
I
it is
don't
for
know that
me?
I'm great at it, but I think internally I've gotten better with it because the goals are shorter. I've had to, that's the beauty of it is when your goals are shorter term, you have more opportunity to practice celebrating, right? So if it's like this week I'm going to do this, when you get to Friday and you're like, hey, I did it, celebrate, that's great.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like even some of the best, uh, exercise apps that you might download. Um, or whatever that you might use. They even build in days of rest. Not only is it physically healthy, but it's also like a little celebration, Oh yeah, I did it for 5 days in a row. I get a day off, right?
Get a day off, right?
I mean, that's just. I think there's just wisdom where you build into that a regular rhythm of, because it's both. It's unrealistic and unhealthy to expect that I'm going to constantly be pushing towards this goal the entire year. And I mean, people can do that, and you may do that. Here's the, I think, the danger of not celebrating along the way, especially with a long-term goal. I mean, with a long-term lofty goal, and you don't celebrate along the way,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to deny yourself things to get to that goal, and that's just true. A Division I athlete makes different choices about the things that they eat and where they go and how they spend their time than an intramural athlete.
Right.
It's a sacrifice that they're willing to make for the bigger thing that they want. So everybody makes sacrifices to get to goals. If you push and push and push and you don't celebrate and you don't give yourself any time to take stock of how you're moving towards your goal, you may end up getting that goal and realize you've sacrificed things that were more important to you than that goal was.
Right.
You know?
Right. I got here at the expense of what? My mental health, relationships, purpose, all those things.
That's right. I mean,
Why do you think that's such a challenge for driven people to celebrate?
well,
I mean, every week doesn't have to be a party. I mean, we don't. It's just every Friday we're going to celebrate. But even just like when you've made a milestone, man, it's has always been. I'm always already looking to the next thing and not just going, oh wow, we did it or that happened. And
yeah. Well, I think
was
that some of
proud of
us,
my work.
I think that some of us are certainly motivated more by attaining than we are by celebrating. And so I think that there's that certainly there. So celebrating is not nearly as gratifying as attaining the next thing, which is another reason why I think it's good to celebrate. Because if you just get motivated by and driven by attaining, you're just going to keep attaining and attaining, and you're never going to get there, and you're never going to celebrate, and you're never going to enjoy the things that you attain. So I think that there is, for a lot of us, there's motivation and sometimes identity that comes with attaining things, reaching new heights, hitting new goals. And to stop and celebrate may seem somewhat disingenuous because we're not really there yet. And we don't get as excited about celebrating as we do about conquering. So
Well, and in the long run, it's just not sustainable. And what'll come knocking on your door is burnout.
that's right. That's
Or
right.
you know what? We'll change jobs. We'll change cities. We'll change houses. We'll change spouses.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's a dangerous habit to be in if it goes unchecked.
Yeah. Hey, let me turn the tables on you with one then.
Yeah,
So what's the dangers of not setting goals?
man, if you don't pick out a road, anyone will get you there. So you've got to have some direction. You've got to have some purpose. You know, what are the things that get you up in the morning? And it's not clear cut. It's like, you know what are my gifts and abilities, and what do I have to offer that it really is a gift that I can be a blessing to someone else, and actually even get paid for it as a vocation. So sometimes it takes a lifetime for someone to figure that out.
You said something that I think is really important for some people to hear. Our goals, we're the ones who decide the things that we care about, the things that matter to us, the things that are worth working for. Because I could give a monetary goal to some people, say, hey, this is, what if you made this much money this year? And they're just be like, maybe, I mean, sure, whatever. They're not intrinsically motivated by that. But if we talked about lifestyle, if I talked about, hey, I want to be a blessing to other people, I want to be a financial blessing to other people. A lot of, I see people around me in my community or in my church or wherever that is, and there's need out there, and I'd love to be one of those people who just writes fat checks. Right? Because how cool would that? Because you've raised money before, and you know what it's like to need the benevolence of other people. Well, what if I'm motivated by the fact, man, I want to be one of those people? Like I want to be one of those people who just blesses people with financially. Great. So your motivation isn't money. Your motivation is to be a blessing to other people because that brings you a ton of satisfaction. Now I can work backwards towards financial goals because now financial goals make sense.
Right.
I want to get out of debt. I want to take vacations with my family. I don't want to just take vacations with my family to look like I've got money to take vacations. I want to take vacations because I'm getting away from everything else with my family. I'm purposefully relaxing and resting. Great. So purposeful rest and relaxation, connection with your family is an intrinsically motivating thing for you. That takes money. I can now work backwards towards my financial goals, and then it makes sense. And I can be motivated by that.
Man, that's good. That's really good. And then the bigger thing is like, you know what? It's not just the vacation. It's the time I've had with my kids.
Yeah.
It's the investment. It's the relational capital that we have. And we've all got time. We've all got differing and varying amounts of maybe financial statements. But man, we all still have the same amount of time. The best thing you can give or take away from someone is your time. Mm-hmm. So it's not just how you invest your money. It's how you invest in your time. And what I do is not who I am. And I think that's a whole other topic on.
Yeah, that's right. That's another podcast.
And we work hard. And a lot of things are not in our control. We don't have control over the economy. We started a coffee shop for EOT Coffee 4 months before the pandemic hit. We didn't realize all the challenges. And
you probably also didn't realize there was going to be a pandemic. So you can give yourself a little grace there.
Yeah, a little bit of there, and supply chain, all those things. And it's easy to get in a hypervigilant mode that you're just trying to just prepare for what might happen. I work myself to death, not literally, emotionally. And
wow.
Or I would be here. Wow. On preparing for things that what might be. And the other tool that Giant has that really helped me is, you know what? Control the controllables. I spent so much time in catastrophic mode trying to prepare for what might happen. Many of those things never did happen, but it took so much energy, so much of my bandwidth that I couldn't focus on the things that were in my control. And end of the day, that's just exhausting. So looking at each one of those circles, what can I control? What can I not control? Where am I spending my time and energy? And man, when I can control and take care of something that's on that side, man, I need to celebrate that. You know what? It may be efficiencies and cost savings, and what shakes out of that is profit margin. It may be not finances at all. It's the amount of time I've spent on my team, equipping them for a role so I can multiply myself. And so it's not a one-man show doing everything, but you've got a team working on that. So how have you seen that? I guess one, how do you do that in your own life and with people that you coach in businesses? How do you expose them to that the light bulb comes on and realize that they don't have to, it's not all up to them?
So I think here's the thing with goals and conversations and desires and all those type of things. I think desires give you focus, right? So it's much easier. I had somebody challenge me, 2 years ago, not to write what my business would look like in 2 years, but what would my life look like in 2 years? Because that, for me, I don't draw many lines. So professional, personal, I don't draw many lines.
We're wired the same way there.
Yeah. I'm much more, I like what I do and I can be paid for what I do. So those are both great things, but then having a goal of but this is what I want life to be like in 3 years, 5 years or whatever, then that's easier for me to work back to, because that has a price tag to it. Right. And so now, but without that goal, it's just like, I want to make more money and I'm just throwing money in a bucket with a hole in it. Right. Because I'm not going anywhere with it. So the same thing personally I would do with a company. It's like, okay, what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing you all would like to accomplish this year, right? Of course, a lot of times it's going to be, it's a profit margin or whatever. Okay. What's the most effective way to realize that type of profit margin? Right? So now we're going to, because all it is we're taking it from a nebulous, massive goal, and then we're breaking it down into smaller and smaller ones. Where it's like, okay, well, I think there's two basic ways to hit that problem: sell more stuff, have less waste. Okay, great. Which one do you think is going to be easiest to remedy the fastest? You know what? Right now there's some waste that we have going on. There's some inefficiencies. There's some people who aren't trained up quite right. I think we could close that spigot pretty quickly. Great. Let's focus there. Q1. Let's look at training. Let's look at inventory. Let's look at how you're doing those processes, and let's shore that up first and get as efficient as possible. You're still selling stuff. That's fine. But until you've shored up your waste, selling more things is not going to be nearly as efficient as it could be. So, it's things like that.
Those are easier fixes, and it takes away some of the uncertainty and fear because you feel like you're just bleeding money. It's like, oh no, these are the logical next steps.
Yeah. And if you're not good at making goals, and I get it, I'm not either. I mean, if you're not good at making goals, look currently at what you wish was different, right? Rather than looking at what you wish was true, look at what you wish was different. What didn't work as well this last year as I wanted to. So, if I'm a company and we were just crazy busy. We felt like we were chasing our tail all year. We had plenty of sales come in. We didn't realize quite the profit margin that we wanted to, because when we got in that moment, and we had all that work to do, it felt way more disorganized than it needed to be. We had too many bottlenecks. We had too many, all those type of things. Awesome. Rather than look at that as a failure, man, that's your opportunity, right? That right there is, if we shore those things up, when that happens again, we're going to realize more efficiency, less waste, more profit, all of those things. So even with your own life, you look at, you get to the end of a year, you get to end of 2024, it's great time to look back, take stock. I was with a guy yesterday, we were talking about his family, right? And he knows going forward, these are some things that I want to be true about my life with my family. I want to be able to be there for dinner. I want to be able to go to games. He and his wife make a good living, but they have made decisions pretty strategically where they invest in experiences more than they do in belongings. So that was great. We started with a really clear picture of, okay, this is what you want life to be like. Now let's work backwards to your current reality, and then we'll go back forwards towards what would get in the way of that.
Right.
And we were
I
able
hear
to,
you talking about a balance of being productive and also being present. And so it doesn't matter if you've made all the money in the world and man, you're having problems at home with your family, and that was an expensive trade-off. You became financially successful at the expense of what? So I love what you say. What are your goals for this year? What does success look like for you? And there may be financial, but there's some things relationally or personal health and my purpose that I need to be addressing this year.
look, man, some of you listening to this right now, having financial goals is easy for you. Having financial goals, it's tangible, it's easy, you can do it, you can go out and execute it, but that's not really what you want. I mean, it is, you want that, but that's not what where you need to, that you need to grow, you need to invest in some of your relationships. And the reason you haven't is because it's hard. Whatever you're not doing that you're wanting to do, whatever goal you have, you're not doing it because it's difficult and you don't have a plan for it, So the question would be, if you want to get to end of 2025 and say, man, you know what, my relationship with my son is better than it's ever been. Great. Do you think there's anything that you could do today that would walk you in that direction? Right? Because what you're going to be tempted to write down is, we're going to go camping every month together. Maybe you might. What about when he gets home from school today? What if you're home? Or what if when you come home from work today, you find him first and you sit down and you talk to him?
Yeah. How was your day?
Yeah. What if when you're driving him to football practice, because he doesn't drive yet, you turn off the radio and you have a conversation, right? So there's little things that you can do. Don't feel guilty about that. Just do something different, right? I mean, there's little things that you can do.
It doesn't have to be just the epic trip.
Yeah.
So what are the small wins along the way that day?
Yeah. You've been on one of those. You've been one of those epic trips when it didn't flow from work that had been being layered on, and it's just like super awkward. Like it's like trying to force intimacy. It's like,
yeah, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah,
and
man, just stack 'em.
Things rarely look like we plan. But man, what if we trusted the process and did those little atomic habits?
Yep. Stack your goals, man. Stack your goals.
Yeah, make your bed every day.
Yep.
Go brush your teeth before you. That's 2 wins you've had before you've ever walked out of the door. And if you've been experiencing burnout and feeling defeated, if you've walked out the door with 2 wins, as little as those may sound, and that's a big deal. And you and I have both had people in our own lives that have walked through some of these things with us. We didn't get here by ourselves, and so you do it in relationship. As we've pivoted over here to the folks that are listening, I would just challenge you to think, what's one tool that I have that I can use today for a win? It may be a tool that we've shared here. It may be a piece of advice that someone's given you. It may be a relationship or a mentor that you have. But man, don't be the Lone Ranger and think that you've got to do it on your own. Find someone to come alongside you, and 1, have some accountability, and 2, just be able to celebrate the small wins. One thing that you and I have gotten to work on that I'm excited about is Leader Core Norman, where in a little longer format than this, that we circle up with other leaders from this community that want to be better, want to lead healthy, want to be healthy personally, want to lead others healthy. Just for a couple of seconds here, just give a little intro to what Leader Core is and how people could get plugged into that here if they're in the Norman or Oklahoma City metro area.
Yeah, love it. A Leader Core is just what you said. It's a gathering of leaders in the community, in a community, who want to change the narrative around leadership in their communities. They don't want to for a long time. Leadership development has been inspirational. Like we take the team and we fly them across the country and we go hear a big name speaker and we all get jazzed. We read the book or we read the dust cover and then we act like we read it. And it lasts for a little bit. It's like a little bit of a camp high, lasts for a little bit. What we're really after in doing these leader core gatherings across the country is transformational leadership. And that happens. Man, I'm telling you, it's funny. It's just like setting goals, right?
Right.
The big event inspiration is like the epic experience. Dude, we're going to ride this high the rest of the year. No, you're not. The way to build it is slow and steady, maybe unimpressive in terms of the other ones. But we meet quarterly with this leader core group and we're just stacking. We're just stacking leadership paradigms. We're just stacking leadership encouragements and creating some accountability along the way, because it's a lot of the same people. We add to it every time. It's a lot of the same people come back because we're having continual conversations that are stacking on top of one another and then expecting, hey, what did you do in between? It's just a little bit of benevolent accountability and faces around the room that look familiar. They're like, hey, yeah, man, we're all in this community. We want to see it done differently. So it's really exciting. Definitely join us. It's fun. It's not a huge group of people, so it's not intimidating. Yeah, it's at the Noun in Norman. Great hosts for us. Fantastic place. Definitely come join us. And the other thing I would say too is if you are listening to this and you've got and you. So my challenge to you is like do something, right? So if you have that one thing that you can do, maybe it is that when I get home today, I'm going to go right to my kids and I'm going to sit down with them and talk to them. Awesome. If you do something like that, would you hit up Todd on LinkedIn or wherever you find him and like post a follow-up where it's like, hey, I heard the podcast, decided I wanted to do this. I did it. Right. So we can celebrate.
I did that one thing. And what I love about the Leader Corps is that it's people that you rub shoulders with here in this metropolitan area. And so it is some good built-in accountability with folks that want to see other people succeed. So
yep. A lot of fun.
Well, Jay, man, thanks for your time today. And
yeah, man,
we've got lots to celebrate. We're still just in the second week of January. So as we're going into the new year, it's just a good reminder of myself just to not dominate myself, look at the small wins for today.
100%.
And don't be the Lone Ranger. The journey that we're on is as important as the destination. So
that's right, man.
Appreciate that today. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you? If something that you've said today, they want to follow up and have more of that conversation, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, easiest way is just email me, jay.sampson. You see it there if you're watching. Say MPSON at giantworldwide.com. That's the easiest way to reach me, fastest way to reach me. Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation if that's helpful, answer some questions, take a rebuttal. That's fine. Critique, I can take it, whatever.
Well, I'll add that in the show notes along with the link to